All right, so as the title suggests, in this video, I'm giving you all my top 10 list of warm and cozy inspired by fragrances that I have in my collection. These are going to be fragrances that are perfect for like the fall and winter time. I think this is a pretty solid list, man. So just to get started, I'm going to start off with an honorable mention that I have here. This one is actually like my newest fragrance that I've recently just got. And this one is from Teriaq Prestige. This one is Noor from Teriaq Prestige. So this is their take on Gris Charnel Extrait from BDK. And this, you could arguably say that like it's definitely stronger and more potent, you could say, than even what the original Gris Charnel Extrait is, especially when it comes to like that cardamom that you get in like the initial opening spray of the fragrance. It seems to be very, very, strong, potent. And to me, it also kind of gives it a slightly more kind of masculine edge to the fragrance as well, man. So yeah, I would say if you're into like that really sort of really strong, potent cardamom, that black tea, the vanilla that you get from, something like Gris Charnel, just the scent profile overall between Gris Charnel and the Extrait, this is going to be right up your alley. And I mean, it does smell very high quality as well, man. It definitely is, to me, it is a better interpretation of the Extrait than what something like Al Wataniya's Masad is. Masad, to me, this is not, it's not as aggressive as what the original is. And, I would say if you're looking for a less aggressive, version of Gris Charnel Extrait, then just go with something like the EDP or like an interpretation of the EDP, which I would say the best one for me anyway is the French Avenue 63, French Seek 63.55. That one smells like almost identical really to the original fragrance. So yeah, man, I would say this one I'm not too big on, so far, especially with this one existing, because it does really, it takes that really, really strong, I would say, really kind of aggressive cardamom that you get in the initial opening of Gris Charnel Extrait. It takes that and it dials it up just slightly. So again, man, I would say definitely check this one out if you're looking for like a very masculine, warm, cozy, fresh, spicy, slightly kind of vanillic type of scent for the winter time, winter and fall. Definitely check out Al Noor from Teriaq Prestige. All right, and then just to get the list started here, first one on the list, this one is from French Avenue. It's Royal Blend Sequoia. So this is their take on the Angel Share parody. And this is a very good interpretation in my opinion, man. I would say it's not going to be like a one-to-one, you could even consider this like a slight sort of twist. But it is a twist with, I would say, characteristics that I actually prefer a little bit more than what, you get with something like the Angel Share parody. Yes, the Angel Share parody is stronger than this, and you could say technically it is the higher quality, better blended scent. But at least for me anyway, it's not the better smelling scent. So I do definitely prefer wearing this over the Angel Share parody for sure. Angel Share parody is definitely more woodier than what this is, and it's a little bit more heavier on the rose than what you get with the Royal Blend Sequoia. To me, this is a little bit more heavier on that raspberry note that you get in Angel Share parody. But I mean, I would say, really with this, you can't really go wrong with either this or like the original Royal Blend, especially if you're into like the Angel Share sort of scent profile. I feel like Angel Share parody is not that much different really from the original Angel Share. Again, it just has like an added note of rose and raspberry, and I would definitely say the woody sort of aspect of Angel Share is more amped up in that fragrance. But I don't think that it's so much better than the original that it should cost what it does. So At least for me, I feel like this is the much better buy. It still has very good projection, you know, at least an arm's length or so for like the first 2+ hours, and it still lasts well past 8 to 10 hours. So again, it's a very, very good performing fragrance. Smells pretty high quality. It's just not like a one-to-one to the original. All right. So again, man, check out Royal Blend Sequoia from French Avenue. All right, next one on the list. This one is another one from French Avenue. This one is a part of their Zenith line. And this one is Zenith Tobacco. So this is their take on Dior's Tabacular. And, you know, at least for me, I do think that this does smell better than something like Maison Alhambra's Tabac, or now I believe it's called Smoky. It's just not going to be like the exact same as what you get with Dior's Tabacular. Dior's Tabacular to me is I would say the much more like thicker and I guess you could say even sweeter scent than what this is. This to me, it does not have as much of an emphasis on like that really sort of thick, sweet honey that you get from Tabacular. I think this has a little bit more of an emphasis on like a sort of dusty, smoky tobacco, in the Zenith Tobacco, as opposed to like the Dior Tabacular. That's very, again, heavy on like the honey. And I would say, yes, you do get like like a slightly kind of dusty, smoky tobacco in that fragrance as well, but it's slightly different. Even though this does have like those, slight differences to Dior's Tabacular, this does still smell like Dior's Tabacular. All right. Just, I would say again, with a slightly different texture than that fragrance has. But this is a very, very good high quality interpretation. And I absolutely would say that this is one that I would recommend, for someone who's looking for a really, really strong, long lasting, unisex, warm, cozy, tobacco type of scent for like the fall and winter time. This is definitely for this time of the year for sure. Performance on it again is very good. This is going to give you, even though it's not as thick as what the Dior Tabacular is, it is still going to give you well past the arm's length of projection for at least like the first 3-4 hours. And then this is going to last well past 12. All right. So very, very solid interpretation of Tabacular. I absolutely would recommend this again over the, Maison Alhambra Smoky. But again, man, check out Zenith Tobacco from French Avenue. All right, next one on the list. This one is from Catlage, and this is Catlage Cafe Latte. So Cafe Latte, this is their take on Amore Cafe from Mancera. I got hip to this one from Walt over there at Fat Boy Finesse. He had like a top 10 fall list, and he had, this as well as the Noor on it. So that's why I picked these up. And I had never smelled Amore Cafe. I do have a sample of that coming, but I was just curious to see, what this smelled like, because, he was pretty high on this for like a coffee scent. And I mean, if you've watched this channel for any amount of time, at least for me anyway, like coffee scents, I'm not really the biggest fan of those types of scents for the most part. Like I kind of feel like they either go one or the other direction. So it's like they're either like this super dark roast, mixed with dark chocolate sort of, smelling fragrance where they're really kind of like tart, I guess you could say, or like unsweetened. They either kind of go in that direction and slightly even earthy sometimes, or they go into like the super feminine leaning side where it's kind of like they're really sort of like overly sweet, overly like lactonic and creamy. That I don't get with this. So with this, I get, I would say more of like a nutty sort of almond feel from this fragrance is what I get anyway. So I get a very prominent almond note from this, like a spiced, latte as well. But I would say the spiced latte is not necessarily like, it's not the biggest star of the show in this particular scent anyway. I would say really the almond is, at least on my skin, a little bit more prominent than what the latte note is, or like that sort of latte feel anyway. And while you do still get kind of like a slightly kind of creamy and even lactonic type of feel from this, to me anyway, it never really becomes like overly lactonic, or like it never becomes overly sweet or feminine to me. This is definitely like a straight down the middle kind of unisex, I would say gourmandish, style scent for sure. You do definitely get, again, that sort of, latte sort of coffee note or, feel from this fragrance. But again, it is definitely, mixed in with a lot of like a creamy sort of almond note. You do also, I think you kind of get like some sort of creamy sort of note as well from this. It might be from like either ice cream or whipped cream or something like that. Like it's some sort of creamy note that is in this fragrance. But it's not overly done. All right. You're not getting like the more kind of feminine style notes, like stuff like marshmallows and stuff like that, or like sugar, I don't believe. It's a sweet scent. It's a sweet, spicy, coffee scent without being like overly feminine, in my opinion. Like, I do also like and have the Eternal Coffee from Paris Corner. This I can easily say is definitely more, feminine leaning, than what the Cafe Latte is. I do think that these would actually layer pretty nicely, because this does also have kind of like that spice sort of latte sort of feel to it, as opposed to it having more of like a dark roast sort of coffee note. So I think these two would probably go well together, but this does definitely have more of like a feminine feel to it. I would say because it has kind of like a coconutty sort of feel to the fragrance. And, again, it is definitely a lot more kind of like on the lactonic side than what the Katlush is. Now, as far as performance goes on this so far, I've gotten really, really good performance the 2 times that I've worn this so far. So projection wise, it's been just enough. Like, I feel like if this were any stronger than what it is, it would probably be a little bit cloying, at least for me. So I definitely get like around an arm's length or so for like the first hour and a half. And then this really does linger on my skin a very long time, well past 8 hours so far, man. So again, I would say if you're looking for a very warm, spicy, cozy, type of coffee scent, this would be one that I would definitely recommend, man. Definitely check out Cafe Latte from Katlush. All right, next one on the list. This one I prefer this one over the original fragrance, to be honest with you. This one is from Paris Corner, and this one is Paris Corner's Farah. So Farah, this is their take on Side Effect from Initio. I would say that this is a slightly like smoother blend than even what the original Initio is, and definitely smoother, for sure, than what the French Avenue After Effect is. There's really no note that really sticks out more than the other with this. So I don't get more booziness than anything. I don't get more spice than anything. I don't get more tobacco over anything else in this fragrance. It's just done very, very well, man. This is a very kind of like, again, boozy, spicy, slightly kind of vanillic tobacco type of scent that's extremely unisex for sure, and very, very easy to wear for this time of the year. It's a very warm, spicy, boozy, type of scent for sure. This is also, it's not going to be as strong as what the original, Side Effect or even the French Avenue After Effect is. But I actually like that about this one, because it allows me to kind of wear more sprays of this without it really becoming like cloying or like headache inducing. Whereas, you know, when I had my After Effect bottle, I would say really the maximum amount of sprays I could really do with that was like 4 to 5 before it really became like too much for me. This is definitely a little bit more smoother for sure. And again, it's a little bit more kind of refined. All right. So I would say for sure, man, if you're a fan of Side Effect and you're looking for like a really well blended, really, really nice interpretation of that scent, then definitely check out Paris Corner's Farah. All right, next one on the list. This one is from French Avenue, and this one is French Avenue Xandal. So this is one of Neeb's fragrances, and this one I actually also prefer this over like the I won't say the original, but the fragrance that it is, you know, I would say heavily inspired by, which is Lorenzo Pizzaglia's Vampirum. This is more of sort of like a chocolatey sort of interpretation of that scent. More chocolatey, slightly less boozy, for sure, especially in the opening. I would say in the opening it's a lot less boozy than what the Vampirum is. That's the only thing that I wish they would have, you know, kind of kept from the original fragrance in this, is like that really, really, you know, boozy rum note that you get from Vampirum in the initial opening of that scent. I really do enjoy that a lot. I just in general, I like alcoholic notes in fragrances. So I really think that extra emphasis on that rum note definitely would have been well welcomed, you know, in this particular scent. But I mean, it is what it is. This still does have a rum note in the initial opening, but I would say the rum is more in the background of this. So this is more of kind of like a chocolatey patchouli mixed with sort of rum, at least in the opening. It kind of smells like Tootsie Rolls, you could kind of say. But, you know, and I mean, initially I wasn't like that much of a fan of this fragrance. Like I honestly, I didn't really like it when I first smelled it. But as I wore it more and more and kind of, you know, like sat with the fragrance, I started to like this one a lot, man. So I haven't been able to really wear this one a lot because when I got it, I feel like it was starting to kind of warm up. So I really didn't get that many wearings in of this fragrance, but this is definitely going to be one that I'll be wearing, you know, this season for the most part, because it is a very, very nice, you know, vanilla scent that is very unisex as well, man. And again, like I mentioned, I actually prefer the way that this smells over the original. I think the original, to me, the way it comes across is a little bit more on the medicinal side, you know, especially with how the patchouli is done in that fragrance. And it comes across, in my opinion, a little bit more watery, I guess you could kind of say. Whereas this definitely comes across more thicker and slightly more sweeter, you could say. But overall, man, it's a very, very nice vanilla scent, man. Vanilla, like I said, patchouli, rum, some, you know, slight spices in the scent as well. Very, very nice, man. So again, check out Xandal from French Avenue. All right, next one on the list. This one is Rayhan's Crimson. This is their take on Creed Centaurus. A really, really good interpretation of Centaurus. Not as smooth, obviously, as the original Creed, and not as well blended, but a very, very close interpretation of Centaurus. You know, this is going to start off with a lot of like cinnamon spice and woods, and then, you know, eventually it will kind of transition into like a very heliotrope dominant fragrance, even more so than what the original Creed is. And then you get like tobacco and woods with this as well. It's just overall, it's one of the better sort of like warm, cozy, like fall, wintertime types of scents for sure. Very unisex in my opinion as well. I think I more so see more men kind of wearing this fragrance or talking about it anyway, but I do still think that, you know, a woman could absolutely wear this as well. But yeah, man, I would say for this fragrance, you know, the biggest difference is obviously it's the quality between this and Centaurus, and then it's also the fact that this fragrance does have like in terms of like the balance between the notes, the heliotrope note is definitely more prominent in this fragrance than what it is in the original. All right, so I would say if you don't like that heliotrope note in the original, then you probably would want to stay away from this one. The performance on this though is actually pretty good, well past 8 hours of longevity, and really good projection, at least an arm's length for like the first 2 hours. All right, so again, check out Rayhan's Crimson. All right, next one on the list, this one is from Joe Milano. This is, I would say, easily like my favorite so far Joe Milano fragrance that I've smelled. This one is Joe Milano's Game of Spades No Limit. So this is their take on MFK's Amorous Homme Extrait. That fragrance is basically, it's like it starts off like citrusy and sweet at the same time. I don't really know exactly where the sweetness comes from within that scent, because it doesn't really smell like a vanillic type of, you know, sweet scent, or it's not like overly fruity or anything like that. It just has like this sort of sweetness, you know, to the scent, both the extrait and the original EDT. The EDP or the extrait though, I would say is definitely more thicker, you could say, than what the EDT is. The EDT is definitely, at least for me anyway, it performs a lot better in like warmer weather for the most part. So like late spring, early summer is kind of like the sweet spot for me to wear that fragrance out here. Whereas I feel like this Game of Spades No Limit, or even the original extrait, could be worn all year round, especially like if you're in a climate controlled environment. The only difference really that I was able to pick up between this and the original is the original in the opening, I felt like the citruses were a little bit brighter than what this fragrance was. And just overall, the feel of the original fragrance was slightly softer than what this was. This to me is a little bit denser, slightly sweeter, and even slightly woodier than what the original MFK Amorous Homme extrait is. So, you know, I would say depending on who you are, that may actually be a good thing. And I mean, especially when you consider the price difference, like for me, I didn't notice a quality difference between the MFK and this. This still smelled of like the same level of quality as what the MFK did, just with, again, those slight sort of differences, mainly in the opening of the fragrance. But this does still smell like a very high quality, like niche level fragrance. And I mean, obviously with, you know, any sort of Joe Milano, when it first comes out, normally they are at their most expensive, you know, price point when that first happens. But normally over like the next few months or so, unless it's like a fragrance that stays sold out, they normally kind of drop down into like that 60, you know, I would say that $60 to $70 range or so. And, you know, I would say anything between like $60 to $70 for this fragrance is absolutely worth it, in my opinion anyway. Especially if you are familiar with like that Amorous Homme, you know, scent profile in general, and you're a fan of it, I would say this is absolutely worth a pickup, man. It's very kind of hard for me to describe what Amorous Homme smells like. It's a, you know, again, a very kind of like citrusy opening, mixed with like some sort of sweetness. Again, I don't really know where it comes from, but it's like a sweet woody scent for the most part. And it's very, very smooth, very aromatic, and very easy to wear, very versatile. All right, so the performance on this is also very good. I would say that the projection and longevity is actually a little bit better, at least for me anyway, than what it is with the MFK. So projection for me, I would say is maybe about 20 to 25% better than what it is with the Amorous Homme extrait. And then as far as the longevity goes, this does last a little bit longer on my skin than what the Amorous Homme does. All right, so if you're looking for a really good interpretation of that scent, definitely check out Game of Spades No Limit from Joe Milano. All right, next one on the list, this one is from Lattafa. This, I would say, is one of their best, fragrances that they've, released. And it's not even an interpretation. This is actually an original fragrance. This one is Lattafa's Teriaq Intense. So Teriaq Intense, this is it's in some ways similar to Camera, but it's definitely not exactly the same. I don't think that this is redundant if you already have Camera. This is going to be more of like a year-round type of scent, whereas I feel like Camera is more so for like late fall and winter for the most part. So this is nowhere near like as thick or as dense as what Camera is. It's not as sweet as what Camera is. And to me, it just overall, it has more of a lighter, fizzier, ambery type of feel to it than what Camera does. Really, really love the plum liquor note in this fragrance. It kind of gives it like a slight sort of boozy feel to it. I feel like some of the sweetness does also come from that as well, but it's not, again, like overly sweet. It doesn't have like that really sort of sticky, thick sort of dates sweetness that you get from Camera. This is more of sort of like I don't know, I guess more of like a neutral sort of sweetness for the most part. Which, it makes it to where this is a very unisex scent as well. A lot of people, I think, would kind of consider Camera to be more of sort of like a feminine leaning scent. I'm not necessarily one of those people, but, if you're definitely somebody who doesn't like sweeter scents, then you will kind of think that about something like Camera. Whereas I feel like you probably wouldn't think that necessarily about this scent, even though it is still like a sweet kind of, ambery, fresh, spicy type of scent. It's just not as far on like the sweeter side as what, Camera is. The performance on this is also very good. It's not going to project as loudly as what Camera does, but it does give you at least an arm's length of, projection. I would say really for like the first hour and a half to 2 hours. And this is going to last you well past 8 hours. So for me anyway, I feel like this is definitely like a really nice fall, well, really all year round kind of warm, cozy type of scent. I think that this really would do well as like a date night type of scent. But for like the fall and winter time, I do think that this has like a very nice sort of warm, cozy feeling to it that, definitely is, for this particular type of year. All right. So definitely check out Lattafa's Teriaq Intense. All right. Next one on the list. This one is another one from Fragrance World. And this one is Notes Jazz from Fragrance World. This one is their take on Goldfield and Banks Silky Woods. So I did have like a full bottle of Silky Woods like a couple of months ago, and like that was a complete blind buy. I had never, worn that fragrance or tried it out before I bought it, and for whatever reason, man, there was something in that fragrance that just didn't really sit right with my skin. I've seen other people online, especially on Fragrantica, kind of refer to that fragrance having like a sort of Band-Aid type of smell. I didn't necessarily associate, the smell that I was getting from Silky Woods with Band-Aids, but I was seeing a lot of people mention that. And so clearly I wasn't the only one who was, kind of off put by something in that fragrance. And even though I won't say that that's completely gone in this fragrance, this does seem to be a lot more enjoyable for me to wear than what Silky Woods was. Now, again, I still need to get, a sample of Silky Woods and actually do like a side-by-side comparison between this and Silky Woods. But what I will say is this did seem to, have a more enjoyable wearing experience, at least for me, than what that fragrance did. So This is definitely a very sort of vanilla heavy scent for sure. It's a very vanillic, super like I would say almost like suede and smooth kind of woody scent. And the woods in this, I don't know, they definitely they do feel very kind of like warm and creamy, but almost sort of like to the point where I don't know, almost kind of to where like you're burning the wood, sort of. You're kind of like burning the wood, but it's like doused in like this sort of, I don't know, vanilla extract or something like that. Like that's kind of like the feeling that I get from, you know, the Silky Woods scent profile in general. And like I said, at least the way that it's done in this, I don't know if maybe if the vanilla is amped up a little bit more in this fragrance, and maybe the woods are toned down a little bit. I do actually prefer the way that this smells so far. So again, I'll have to do a side-by-side comparison to really see what the differences are, but this does seem to be very, very good, man. It does also last a pretty long time on me, well past 8 hours. And I mean, in terms of the projection on this and Silky Woods are not like the most beast mode projecting scents. So I would say for the most part, they kind of project maybe like a half an arm's length or so for like the first hour and a half, 2 hours. And then, you know, after that, they're kind of like skin scents. But, you know, you can definitely still get wafts of this fragrance and tell that it's there. Again, it's just not like the most strongest scent out there. All right. So again, man, if you're a fan of Silky Woods, I would say definitely take a look at Notes Jazz from Fragrance World. All right, and then the last one on the list, this is a Banadir fragrance. I've had this one on a ton of different lists now so far, but it's just because it is very good. This one is number 2 from Banadir. So this is their take on Altair from Parfums de Marly. Extremely close. I would say the only difference is in the opening, you get maybe a minute or two of extra freshness from like, you know, the bergamot that you get in the original Altair, whereas this kind of goes straight into like the vanilla and spices for the most part. But outside of that, this has the same level of quality as the original Altair. So, you know, I would say just slightly better than what the Liquid Brune from French Avenue has. And just overall, man, this is, again, outside of like those first 2 minutes or so, or minute, this is like identical to Altair, you know, like that really sort of like sweet, spiced kind of whipped vanilla mixed with orange blossom. Like that's basically what you get from the Altair scent profile, like a kind of like a masculine style vanilla. This is really good, man. It really is. And you know, for the price that you can get this for, which I believe this particular bottle goes for like $40 on the Banadir website for 100 ml. I really feel like you can't beat that. I've smelled other Altair interpretations that are actually more expensive, that don't smell as high quality as what this does, and that are not as accurate. So this, for me anyway, is definitely the best one that I've smelled. After I got this, you know, I sold my Liquid Brune because this to me was just slightly better than that fragrance was. All right. So performance wise, this is going to last well past 10 to 12 hours. Projection, I would say, is going to match Altair. So, you know, it's going to give you like an arm's length or so for like the first hour and a half, 2 hours. And then after that, it definitely kind of behaves just like Altair does. So again, man, definitely check out Banadir's number 2. And that is the list, man. Definitely let me know what you all thought about the list. Let me know if you have any or all of these fragrances. And if so, what do you all think about these fragrances? Also, I'll have links in the description to where you can pick all of these up. And if you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe. And that's Jamar from Vegas Scents. I'll see y'all in the next video.